All right, hello everyone. Welcome to week 2. Last week we did an overview of law enforcement intelligence, what it is, who's involved in intelligence, what the U.S. intelligence community looks like, etc. So this week we're going to focus on threat assessment. This topic really is at the heart of counterterrorism intelligence, determining how much of a threat exists based on the intelligence gathered. There's a short video this week about fusion centers and then several readings, one from the NTAC, one from RAND, one from the Heritage Foundation. There's also a summary article of the NTAC article that appeared in Police Chief Magazine. It does a good job of summarizing the article, or summarizing the report, but please be sure to read the report in its entirety. Because the length of this video does not allow really for a thorough discussion of all the readings, we're going to mainly focus on the RAND article. But the NTAC report also has some really good information. In addition to a thorough discussion of the various incidents, the first part of the report discusses various lessons learned from the incidents included in the report for assessing threats. One of the keys is to intervene with the individual as early as possible. Many times perpetrators of these types of incidents have warning signs, that something is going on. Could be a variety of things. Rarely do attacks like these take place where everyone's like, oh my gosh, I'm so surprised that person did it, right? There's usually some kind of warning signs. It doesn't always mean law enforcement's aware of these warning signs, or maybe that even anything could be done. But the earlier law enforcement can intervene with someone, usually the better, because these perpetrators or future perpetrators, they don't necessarily have to be arrested, right? That may not be the best course of action. Maybe they need mental health treatment or substance abuse treatment. Both of those things are things that these people could possibly receive if there's law enforcement intervention. Another important consideration is to try and find out as much information as possible about the suspect using a variety of sources. No one source will provide all the information needed to do a proper intelligence analysis about someone. So law enforcement should try to find as many different sources as possible, and find diverse types of information. There's some other considerations that are discussed in the article, but I'm going to move on now to the RAND article. Be sure to read the remainder of that one. The RAND article is a report about a meeting held to discuss and debate domestic intelligence operations and intelligence sharing. There's a lot of information contained in this short article, so be sure to read it in its entirety. This group that met for this meeting was intentionally assembled to have very diverse viewpoints. Okay, they wanted to have a lot of different variety and viewpoints actually in this meeting. So the main points of the article are the terrorist threat has changed, but there's disagreement about how and the scope of the change of threat. The terrorist threat is diverse and it's complex. If you think back to the Carter and Cermak START report from last week, it discussed areas that law enforcement believed to be areas of threat. And if you look at all the different kinds, there's a lot of variety there, and there's been changing over time, right? So people don't necessarily agree with how it's changing or to what it's changing into, but everyone kind of agrees that it is diverse and it is complex. Local law enforcement focuses on how threats manifest themselves in local communities. Their focus is on their particular jurisdiction, but violence spreading around in other parts of the world can impact, locally, right? Their local communities can be impacted by that, whether it be immigrants or families of people that live in other parts of the world, or who knows how. But things happening across the world can become issues in local communities. Categorizing threats by group or origin imposes limits to intelligence sharing and cooperation. That's because of disconnects that exist between the intelligence community and law enforcement. Joint terrorism task forces are the central construct of the domestic counterterrorism structure. Okay, and they've been around for a while, but there are often sometimes unnecessary obstacles that are in place that prevent consistent and quality cooperation between, the task forces and local police. Some of these obstacles were put in place to protect privacy, and civil liberties. And of course, privacy and civil liberties are of the utmost importance to protect, right? Those have to be protected at all costs. But in some places, some places that are unnecessary obstacles, and those should be eliminated if possible. In the past, privacy concerns and civil liberty concerns were used as an excuse to separate, the intelligence community and local law enforcement. And again, those things are very, very important, but it was often used as an excuse rather than something that was unavoidable, right? They used it, even though everybody's supposed to be working together now. We have these task forces, and we have, all this information sharing and all this stuff going on. There still was these disconnects and unwillingness to cooperate, and they would use privacy concerns, quote unquote privacy concerns, as an excuse to not be able to share things with local law enforcement, rather than something that, hey man, we just can't do it, right? We cannot share this with you. Because those things do exist, right? Those situations do exist, but if these barriers can be eliminated, that'll be much better. There's too much difference in how fusion centers are functioning. Some fusion centers are functioning at a very high level, others are not. So because of these wide-ranging differences in how well the fusion centers are functioning, there's questions being asked about whether they're actually useful or not. Right? In some places they are, but other places they're not. Do they deserve to have the funding that they have? Should we keep doing them? Should they be changed? Right? Those are all questions that are being asked. What are ways to make them more efficient? Are there ways to reduce the duplication of tasks? Okay. National intelligence has a foreign focus. So if you're talking about domestic intelligence, local law enforcement is more important. The nation's zero tolerance for terrorism is going to come into conflict with the need to reduce budgets, right? And I think we're seeing that, kind of everywhere, right? After 9/11, there was all this money for all these counterterrorism measures, the terrorism task forces, fusion centers, what be it. There was money available for everything. Well, that's been a long time ago, right? And budget situations change, threat levels change, the public's fear of different things change. So the public still has this zero tolerance for terrorism, but they don't have necessarily the fear that they used to have of terrorism. So at some point, there's going to have to be a discussion about what level of terrorism can be tolerated. You like to say none, right? But at some point, because of budget constraints, the public is probably going to have to be able to tolerate some level of terrorism threat or risk. So where that point is, yet to be determined. Okay, so that is really a really brief overview. Be sure to read that article in its entirety. The third article is from the Heritage Foundation, similar to the NTAC. This one discusses attacks in the U.S. They make some recommendations for the intelligence and counterterrorism community. They're fairly generic recommendations. But as you read that one, think about how it fits with the NTAC article and with the RAND article. And you really should be doing that for all the readings throughout this course. As you read things, think about how they relate to other readings, or think about how it relates to this information that you read over here. Okay? Don't read each of these articles or each of these reports in a silo, right? Read them thinking about the other things that you've also read. All right, I'm going to stop here for this week. Be sure to complete the readings and the assignments, and please let me know if you have questions. I'll see you next week.